We are back with another live. I am your host, Dave, a 10 plus year intellectual property attorney dealing with everything from patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets. So we got a little bit of everything going on this show today. Now I'm pre-recording this. I'll try to be in the chat. I have to do some traveling this weekend. So I'm kind of recording this on the 20th, February 20th. And it will come out, what is it, 22nd? So I'm pre-recording this. It'll come out on the 22nd. At the time of it coming out, I'll probably be in the air or about to get in the air, essentially in the airport. So I'm pre-recording this so I can give you guys something. We got a lot to get off into today. Now, there's no Shark Tank pitch. It seems like they did a repeat episode, so we don't have a Shark Tank pitch for the week to go through. But we do have a number of articles, a number of events, I should say, excuse me. Kim Kardashian seems like she's kind of playing momager similar to her mom, Kris Jenner, did for her. The Kardashian clan seems like she's doing that to her clan, especially with regard to Northwest. So we get off into that. Looks like Meta has an interesting patent that they're coming out that they have just got issued, which I think is going to, I don't think they're going to implement it, at least to this day and age. But again, that can change going forward. We'll talk about that. What also do we have? Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. That's going to be the interview of the week. And I have a ton of thoughts on this. When they got sued, they actually got sued by somebody I interviewed, which was a Shark Tank product. So that's going to be interesting. Then I think rounding this thing off, Donald Trump has filed for trademark protection on his name for airports. So we'll get off all into that. And it seems like he did that based on a bill that was recently passed in Florida. So we will talk about that, man. Before I get off into the articles, I got some housekeeping, man. Hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Hit that subscribe button to be a part of the IP community. Then we have Got IP, the ebook. Link should be in the description. Go check out that book, man. It is every day that goes past. It's man, we playing with fire these days, especially with regard to AI, artificial intelligence, and how it's kind of reshaping the landscape, the work landscape. You hear about employers laying off left and right, and your job was never safe, but it's really not safe now. And if there's one thing I know from being a patent attorney, everybody has ideas, whether it's a service, whether it's a product. I was just talking to a client yesterday, and he has a number of things that kind of we're working on with him. And I kept telling him, like, man, I've seen this stuff too many times. You just need to be right once. And being right once can kind of change the trajectory of your family as relates to, the sales and royalties and things that sort that comes in from this intellectual property stuff. So, and I want to say that to you guys as well. You only have to be right once. Something may fail, this may fail, that may fail, but keep coming out with the products, keep learning, just kind of keep going through the process. And you just have to be right once, and that can change your life as well as we all talk about generational wealth. So it can change the trajectory of your family lineage as well. And a big part of that is the skills, the information is all in the ebook to kind of help you out with that. Not to mention only intellectual property, which is a big part of it, but how to come up with an ideal, monetizing off that ideal. Raising money, all that is in this ebook. So definitely go check that out. And man, let's kind of get going here because I definitely have to go to the airport here in about 30 minutes. So man, let's kind of get going here. And first and foremost is we have the interview of the week. Now, this interview I did when I was in Newport Beach, California, and he was on Shark Tank. He was on Shark Tank a number of years ago on his product. So the interview was from that. John is his name, and he has a dope product, man. I think John is just a dope person all around. So let's kind of take a look at what he has to say about IP, and he's been through the ringer, man. So he has a lot of insight to give. Let's kind of see what he has to say and then go from there. So we are here at Amplify with John Clark, Tandem Surf. How's it going, John?
Oh, it's going great. What an Amplify Summit 2026.
Absolutely. So I wanted to see if you could kind of describe the product for the viewers as well as tell the inspiration behind the product.
That I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Absolutely. As a Shark Tank brand. We had the opportunity to pitch the idea that anyone can surf.
Yep.
And this was back in 2020. We took our first version of our bodyboard, which was made out of foam at the time.
Okay.
And the difference is that it's got handles, that it's a bigger size, it's lightweight, and you're guaranteed to become a surfer with one visit to the ocean. Yes. Are you a surfer?
No, I'm not, but I may be after this episode.
After this episode, I'm going to take you right down the shore And if you can wear those shorts, you don't even have to go in all the way.
Really?
No big waves required.
So how long have you been surfing for?
So I actually grew up in the East Coast.
Okay.
What are the chances that a guy from Boston, right, would get a deal on Shark Tank, right, with his family,
Yep.
and end up, going all the way, all across the world? We've developed our product line, and now I am the president of Tandem Surf, and I run the business with my wife and 3 daughters.
No, I was going to say that because that's pretty unique. And it's one thing I love. I love family businesses where the whole family is bought in. How was that developing and running a business with your wife as well as your kids?
Well, that's a great question. So we have another business called Modern Shelving. We always said, if I can sell it, my wife, who's an engineer, can make it. So we've just focused on doing modern shelving while the kids were growing up.
And that's pretty much it. I don't want to kind of belabor that point, but man, shouts out to John there. And man, John, he, like I said, man, he's pretty cool. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit. But I just love the family businesses. So anytime you can incorporate your wife, I was just having not a heart to heart, but just kind of having something to eat a couple of days ago with a family friend growing up, and was talking about how, man, if you are in a relationship and kind of incorporate kind of like a family business, have more of a family business as opposed to, the wife, both of the spouses going off doing their things, the kids doing their things, and it's all like separate or individualized. Man, if you can have like a family business where everybody is bought in, you get to spend more time with your family. Hopefully you like the kids to the spouse, and you guys get to kind of make money and pass something down compared to, man, I'm a lawyer. I can't pass being a lawyer down to my kids. They have to kind of go to law school and go through the process, kind of make their own path. But, creating a business, starting a business, I can pass that down. Having real estate, I could pass that down. So I love what John, him and his family are doing, his wife, his kids, and they all were there, got a chance to meet him and kind of talk to his wife, lovely lady. And hey man, they was able to they create Tandem Surf. Shouts out to Tandem Surf. They got a patent on the product. They had to kind of, it was some interesting ways how it was like Tandem Boogie at first. Given a trademark issue, they had to change to Tandem Surf. So man, he, like I said, he's had real life experiences and had a ton of success. He's been doing this for 10 or 15 years. What they say, man, if you want to have a real business, most businesses fail within the first couple of years. And he's been around for 10 plus years, I think. So man, shouts out to John. Go check out that full interview. Yeah, I kind of missed that, man. I was in Newport Beach. We had the shorts on. I'm back in Michigan, and trust me, I'm not wearing any shorts on this one. So yeah, shouts out to John and the family, and surf's up, man. Go check out that interview. John is a cool guy. I got his contact information. So this one, man, we're gonna move on. Keep this thing moving. And this was an interesting one. This is actually a scary article, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people don't understand that you can get a patent on pretty much anything as long as it's not is novel, essentially is new, and it's non-obvious. Now, whether or not you can actually practice that patent, that's a whole nother story. You have privacy laws, you have other laws that's in the land that can kind of prevent one from having being able to practice a patent. However, Meta has got issued a patent. You see the title here. Are you ready for digital eternal life? Meta patents AI that can post after you die. I don't know. I just think that's an interesting thing to be able to, like I said, I don't think they're going to practice this at this point in time, but you have to understand and remember, who would have thought in 2026 AI and robots and self-driving cars would be a thing 10 years ago? We would have thought that, man, you're crazy. You're talking about self-driving cars and having robots in the house and artificial intelligence doing all this stuff and taking the jobs. We would have thought that's crazy 10 years ago. So I'm saying all that to say that just because something is crazy today, that does not mean that it will be crazy 5-10 years down the line as kind of what's the norm and expectations changes in the world. And in this case, we have had people, unfortunately, who, they pass away either timely or untimely. And essentially this patent that Meta has given that former person, I should say, their social media account, their profile, to be able to still continue to post even after they passed away. Now, me personally, to be honest with you, I think obviously Meta benefits from this just because they're making money off of these posts. And to the extent that you're monetized, you can make money off it as well. But Meta is monetizing off of the post. So that's why I would say that it's to their benefit that having, people continue to post, especially if you built up a large following and whatnot. But again, it's still kind of scary to be having a dead person post, or I think they were also talking about in an article. Go check out my full video I did on this. The article, being able to, call people up and text people, even though that person is technically dead. That's kind of some scary stuff, in my opinion, man. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on that one. But like I said, it seems like Meta has got the patent to be able to do that. They don't have any plans according to Meta's team to do anything with it now or do anything with it ever. But like I said, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what it seems to be crazy today as it relates to having these profiles, social media profiles, Facebook, Instagram, so forth and so on, being able to post a dead person being able to post and that seeming crazy. That may be kind of okay 5-10 years from now. So kind of be on the lookout how that kind of progresses as you're going forward. And hey, man, just make sure you have your wills, your trust in the states, just kind of everything set up because, again, this is intellectual property. So when you're talking about your account, obviously that's kind of owned by Meta and whatever the case may be, but it's making money. And to the extent that you're monetized, Meta is definitely getting paid, but you can also get paid as well. So when you're kind of providing for your trust and your wills and all that, make sure that you have any money that you get from these social media accounts in there so that your family can benefit as well. I think Michael Jackson, man, this guy, obviously he's Michael Jackson, but his kind of estate makes millions, tens of millions of dollars, even maybe hundreds of millions of dollars every year from him, his estate from him being dead. So obviously you don't get to that level, but hey, man, you make an extra couple $1,000, $10,000 if you have built a nice little following. You're doing that monthly or even yearly after you die. That's something that it should be kind of provided in your estate so that there's no issues or you don't have people arguing and spending the money that should be kind of made or pocketed on attorney fees. So let me know what you guys think about that. I thought that was an interesting article I thought that was an interesting article, man, as that came across my desk. We're going to kind of move on here. This was an interesting one too. Your boy Donald Trump. Donald Trump has, as the article talks about, the AP article, I should say, Trump family business files for trademark rights on any airport using the president's name. And I thought this was interesting because, as I kind of scoot over here, when you're filing for a trademark, you guys have heard me talk about this time and time again, you have to let the USPTO know what class you're going to protect it in. Are you going to protect it in water bottles? Are you going to protect it in electronics? Are you going to protect it in clothing? You have to let the USPTO know that. And we all know that Donald Trump has a ton of trademarks out there for hotels and whatnot. And actually, Donald Trump, that's kind of really his motto, if I'm being honest with you. They license the name for businesses to be able to use, whether it's clothing, whether it's hotels, whatever the case may be, golf courses. And he has the name protected in all those different classes. Now, seems like he's filing for protection on airports. And this seems like stem from, and it's all in the article. Definitely go check out my full video that I did on it. Seems like a Florida bill had passed so that they can change a name of like a airport in like Panama from Panama International Airport or Panama Airport to Trump Airport. And Trump was like, hold on. He filed the trademark in light of that bill so that, ultimately they will have to get permission and maybe pay some money to do that. Now, like I said, it's interesting because typically presidents want their name on buildings. I think Obama, I'm in Michigan, Illinois is right next door. I think Obama is building a library. You have JFK Airport in New York. You have these different, past presidents that they want their name on something that kind of etched their, legacy and history. And it seems like in this case, Donald Trump was like, hold on, you got to get permission from me, my family, and like I said, potentially pay me some money to be able to use my name on these different structures, these different buildings, which, like I said, is different from kind of presidents being like, yeah, go ahead and use my name. And I don't got to pay for it. Y'all go do y'all thing. Just like I said, because they get the chance to get their name on something. But again, to be fair, and I talked about it in a full video, Donald Trump has been doing this forever. So it's not like, and when I say he's been doing it forever, it's not like he's kind of in alignment with the past presidents where they kind of came into their fame, so to speak, as a result of them being president, where Donald Trump was already doing this, like I said, licensing his name to different businesses, hotels, golf courses, clothing, manufacturers for money. So I will give him a break in that regard, even though he's could potentially be blocking others from using his name on buildings without his permission. That is different from how past presidents have kind of navigated the waters. But like I said, Trump was Trump before that, and he was kind of licensing his name and his likeness out before then. So I thought that was interesting, man. But it goes to show you again the importance of this trademark stuff. The fact that, we're going to talk about Kim Kardashian next. But when you're talking about these celebrities and these political figures and whatnot, they're protecting their intellectual property. I think Robert Kennedy III or Jr. or whatever the case may be, he got MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. That was trademarked. So, hey, man, I always say if you want to kind of know how to do something at a high level, just kind of watch and pay attention to what the people who are having a ton of success are doing. And when you're talking about Donald Trump and intellectual property and licensing his name, when you're talking about Kim Kardashian and building a brand and licensing a name, they're protecting their intellectual property. Talking about Meta, hey, they're protecting their patents. So you have to get in the game to be in the game. So again, protect that IP, whether it's a product, whether it's a trademark, whether it's a copyright picture, a creative work. Hey, make sure you're protecting that stuff, and then now you can look to try to monetize off that stuff. Because as I said earlier, once this AI stuff coming, I think, in my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, all we're going to have that's going to separate ourselves from others is our creativity, what we are able to create, build, form from scratch, and then being able to monetize off that. Because everything is going to be like, I don't know, it's kind of going to be the same for the most part. So kind of that's my thing, man. Shouts out to Trump on his airport. And let's kind of move on here to the next one. We did the surfing, we did Meta, we did airport. Let's go to before we get to the last article, man. Let's talk about your girl Kim K. Seems like Kim K is getting Northwest into the family business. I'll pull up this article here. She filed multiple trademarks for what it says. Kim Kardashian files multiple trademarks that hint at Northwest embarking on a fashion empire. So it seems like Nor 11, what you can see here, I think they have it. I'm not sure if you can see if I can kind of blow that up pretty quickly. The company named Nor 11. So it seems like Nor 11, Kim Kardashian is acting as the manager for Nor 11. And again, just one of those stories that I'm going to beat into you guys' head, that you have to protect this intellectual property. Then the good thing about IP, and I said this, go watch the full video breakdown that I did on this. The good thing about intellectual property is no age requirement. You got to be 18 to go into a certain establishment, participate in different activities, but you can be 10 years old. I mean, I've interviewed, people who are preteens, teenagers who've kind of built inventions, so forth and so on. Whether you're kind of coming out with a copyright, coming out with a trademark, a patent, you can be a kid and still participate in that. That's one of the great things that the founding fathers did do, is they didn't put an age requirement on being able to protect your intellectual property. Now, maybe you have to have a guardian 18 or over help you protect it as it relates to filing official paperwork with the USPTO. However, as it relates to you being able to create and get intellectual property, you don't have to be a certain age to do that. So, and again, Kim Kardashian, clearly she knows the game. She's been doing this at a high level for a long time with her brand, Skims being one of them. And she's, like I said, teaching the game to the kids, in this case, Northwest, where, hey, Nor 11, it seems like Nor is obviously part of Northwest's name, and then 11, where she created this at 11. She created the name or the company, or in terms of the clothing, at 11 years old, which again goes to further show you that you don't have to be 18 or an adult to be able to create, come up with names and businesses. You can do this as a kid. You can protect the IP. Like I said, you may need a parent or a guardian or somebody over 18 to help you file for the paperwork. However, you can come up with a business and get money off the business, even though you're a kid. So, and I want to kind of really, man, we all need to be kind of teaching this to our kids. They shouldn't. I interview a ton of people, and I just interviewed Screen Skin. Shout out to Screen Skins. And Ray Sean was talking about, man, he was like, what, late 20s, early 30s when he started the business. And I didn't know anything about intellectual property. I was like learning as I go. And that, I don't want that to be the norm. I want the norm to be, hey, I was taught this by my parents when I was in middle school, or really when I was in elementary, definitely by high school, so that when you go out into the world, you're looking at things from a different lens, and you understand when you create something, okay, do I need to get a copyright on that? Okay, I got this business. I need to trademark the name? Okay, I invented this product. I need to get a patent on that. So you can think about these things differently and go out to the world and just kind of know how to maneuver a lot better than, finding out for the first time when you are in the fire, creating that business for the first time. So again, those are my thoughts on that. You guys have to let me know what you guys think in the comment sections. And I'm going to try to kind of participate in the chat since this is pre-recorded. But shouts out to Kim Kardashian, man. She is definitely passing down the game to her kids, in this case, Northwest. Now, this is an interesting one. When I do these lawsuits, when I pick a lawsuit, I actually go through like 4 different lawsuits. And I actually have to pay for the 4 different lawsuits, but I'm reading through them. And I want to, and I kind of decide which one I want to talk about. And sometimes I will talk about 2 if it's interesting enough. But there's a couple of different boxes that they have to check. Number 1 has to be something that kind of people know about, as opposed to sometimes I'll kind of talk about businesses that just are completely off the radar. in our small businesses. But sometimes I kind of like to pick a business that people know about, whether it's a Gucci, whether it's a Buc-ee's, whether it's a Target or a Walmart or some big business, Starbucks. But then I also want to provide value. Again, the entertainment aspect of it is one thing. So the lawsuit has to be entertaining, but I want to provide value maybe in ways that I hadn't kind of, talking about different principles that I haven't talked about prior. And I know sometimes you have an overlap, but those are really the two big things. I wanted to be some names that people can identify with. But then number two, I wanted the content to be something that is valuable and that adds value to you guys as the audience. So I came across one of the lawsuits that I had picked out to review was 1587. And I'm like, man, I interviewed those guys. So when I, and I'm going to play the interview in a little bit, but so the lawsuit was 1587 and it was like versus Kelce. And I just recognized the name 1587. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I interviewed those guys. And to be honest with you, I typically don't even like to talk about, because some of the people I've interviewed, I think Megan Wolf Graham with Swift Paws, it's Chalkless is another one. They have going on to sue people. A lot of these companies, 1587 included, have been on Shark Tank. So even though these people I've interviewed, they are kind of known brands, whether it's Shark Tank brands or whatever the case may be. And I typically like to stay away from those just because I have a relationship with those people already from having interviewed them. But number one, I thought this was an interesting case that was something it hits on some things that I think we hadn't hit on before. So I thought it was valuable in that way. But then number two, as I'm like, because like I said, it was 1587 sneakers versus Kelce. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who Kelce is. But then when I pull up the complaint, it's Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, oh, I definitely got to talk about this one because now it checks a couple boxes. It's some names that people can identify with. But then number two, the value that the content in there is something that the principles I can like is valuable. So let's, without further ado, let me kind of pull up, for those of you who may not know, we're going to go through the article here really quickly. Let me kind of pull up 1587 and kind of what it is that they do. And again, like I said, this was a Shark Tank brand. I think I interviewed them last year. They were on Shark Tank last year, if I'm not mistaken. So let's kind of pull them up and kind of play this highlight. And this is Sam, man. Sam is cool. I want to say it's two of them. It's two or three co-founders, and this is Sam, which is one of the co-founders that I interviewed last year. So shout out to Sam. You can see co-founder in the title. Let's go.
It's like actually like have something of substance, right? And my mom said something to me years ago. She's like, when you have something of worth to say, people will come find you. And what I was speaking about was about social justice issues. I was educating people on the Asian American experience, what we were going through, but also educating my community about, cross-racial solidarity. So I actually talked a lot about Black and Asian solidarity. I talked a lot about how, especially I think it's pertinent to right now, with birthright citizenship, being debated about whether that's going to be overturned, that Asian Americans, like, we would not be here if the Hart-Celler Act wasn't passed in 1965, in large part due to the advocacy of Martin Luther King Jr. And the civil rights movement. And so, I think that's where a lot of my following came from. Was I was very kind of direct about what was going on. I wasn't trying to fluff it up. I wasn't trying to, make it worse than it really was. I think I was just being direct about this is the situation and circumstances and the plight of my people, but also offering up very clear-cut and tangible solutions. Like, hey, like, there's no way we're gonna stop anti-Asian hate if we're not working in solidarity with other communities. But that also means that we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to also show up and fight for them and their rights as well.
So Sam was talking about is really, which can I talk a lot in the ebook, not to try to plug the ebook again, but a lot of times, man, when you start these businesses, it's based on a problem that you're going through or a problem that others are going through. So Sam, as he talked about in that clip, he kind of really started as an advocate for the Asian community here in the U.S. And he talked about how MLK was a big inspiration of that. And 1587 was birthed. The sneakers were birthed from that movement. He has sneakers. He has apparel. You see he had on a hat. And I typically, he was kind of making them for Asians, even though I typically don't like starting businesses that kind of is for a particular subset of the population that kind of blocks off others. But it seems like, and he was talking about this on a full interview, go check out that full interview that we did also. He was talking about how other groups, whether it's blacks, whether it's whites, actually buy the product as well, a big part of the product. So even though it was something that was kind of directed towards agents for them to buy and kind of rock or whatever the case may be, other cultures, other groups also participate in the purchasing and the wearing of the product 1587 sneakers. But again, as he talked about in that clip, it was really birthed from, which he had done up until that point in time, and he still does, advocacy for, agents, definitely here in the U.S. And like I said, 1587 sneakers being born from that movement. So that's pretty much what they do. They have clothing line, shoes, dope product. Go check it out. I think it's just 1587sneakers.com. And they sell, clothing items for, people to rock. And it's, like I said, pretty dope clothing. Well, now just kind of give you guys a little land before pulling up the lawsuit and going through it. It seems like Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, they partner with they kind of partnered together to open up a restaurant. And when I was initially going through this, and this is why you have to kind of be, number one, careful, but it's always good to have an attorney that's helping you out with this stuff. Because as I was initially looking at it, I'm like, man, 1587, a clothing company. Because again, they have it, as I said before, you have to get your trademark protected in whatever classes that you're using it in. I just talked about Sam and 1587 sneakers. They are a clothing company. They're not using their stuff in things outside of clothing, such as restaurants. However, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, they have a restaurant called, I think, 1587 Prime that, like I said, is a restaurant. So restaurant, clothing, there's really no overlap there. And I guess if it's a famous mark, such as like a Starbucks or whatever the case may be, you have a little bit more broader protection to kind of prevent others from using the mark or starting businesses with the name in other categories that you're not necessarily kind of in. However, if I'm being honest, I don't think 15, even though they were on Shark Tank and it's a dope product and I love those guys, I wouldn't classify it from an attorney perspective as being a famous product, as the laws are kind of written to kind of have a company be famous or a mark be considered famous. But with that being said, I think, and again, we're going to put up the article and go through this. I think what is hurting Patrick Mahomes them is you got a product, a restaurant called 1587 Prime, and you have apparel that you're selling that says 1587 Prime. And I think that's what the angle that Sam and 1587 sneakers are coming from, because they're saying, hey, look here, it's one thing that you had a restaurant, and I'm pretty sure they're still not happy with the restaurant. But from an attorney perspective, I'm not as concerned with the restaurant, because restaurants, clothing, that's two different things. However, 1587 sneakers, 1587 Prime, restaurant, clothing, like I said, that's two different things personally, if I'm being objective. However, when you start selling clothing that says 1587 Prime, now you're kind of entering into our category, which, number one, the importance of having a trademark. Then number two, from Travis Kelce and I'm assuming that they obviously got the money to deal with a trademark attorney. I think they actually have, and this is the crazy thing, they actually have a trademark pending. I think it's either issued, or I don't think it's issued, but it's pending. It was approved for 1587 Prime. However, when they submitted that trademark, they submitted the trademark to the application for the restaurant category. So an examiner is picking up things like, okay, 1587 Prime for restaurant. Okay, I don't see anything. Okay, I have 1587 sneakers, but that's for clothing. This is for restaurant. So again, on its face, it's like, okay, this is good. It's no likelihood of confusion, or it's not kind of entering into territories of other people, or likelihood of confusion with other marks. However, when you kind of start peeling back things and seeing what they're doing, they're selling clothes of 1587 Prime when it's a trademark out there, 1587 sneakers in the clothing category. And I think that's when they start to get in some trouble. So that's kind of my lay of the land. Let's kind of pull up the lawsuit and go through it. Hopefully you guys understood that, because I think this is an interesting one where on its face is no issue. But once you start peeling back the layers, the issue is that it's a restaurant that's selling clothing. So let's kind of go through this here, and then we'll kind of get you guys up out of here. So you see 1587 Sneakers, Inc. versus Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, 1587 Prime. And I was wondering, like, why did they call it 1587 Prime? But obviously Patrick Mahomes is 15, Travis Kelce is 87. So that hence 1587. Let's go through it here. We'll kind of read some of the summary of the action. Since its founding in 1587, it has celebrated the community and cultural legacy of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, have woven into the shared American fabric since the first recorded arrival here in year 1587. And I think that's why Sam and those guys called it 1587, which he talked about in the interview, that the first Asian agent was here in America as of 1587, which I thought was interesting. So then they have an online shoe and apparel company, 1587, got the trademark. More prominence was achieved when they was in the Boston Globe. Seemed like they was in Teen Vogue as well. And rooted in the community, the company also regularly pairs fashion with philanthropy with its partnership with the New York nonprofit. So they kind of donate a portion of the sales to, I mean, again, they're doing some cool stuff. So after years of generating notoriety and earning commercial success, the company recently became aware of the celebrity football player-backed restaurant, dubbed 1587 Prime. The company was understandably concerned that such a high-profile project, choosing a brand name virtually identical to that of its own, would overshadow it and cause irreparable damage. It did, and continues to do so up to this very present day. Shortly after being made aware through legal counsel, the company informed the above defendants that intent is not to require element for infringement while issuing cease and desist notices and multiple good faith resolution options. All of the warnings and efforts were to no avail. They persisted. So essentially, they had to get this lawsuit, commence this lawsuit to kind of get things in order. I'm going to skip the jurisdiction and venue. Let's go to the factual background. 1587 Sneakers, a shoe and apparel company with the first use anywhere and first use in commerce date of April 2023. So 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. 1587 Sneakers, marketing materials, product designs, and public communications consistently and primarily invoke the historical narratives, imagery, and the cultural references as the defining character. So again, they have a trademark on the logo that you see here, which is 1587 in that circle, but they also have a trademark just on the word 50, on the numbers 1587. You see the hat there, which is a hat similar to what Sam was wearing in the interview I did with them. So since its inception, 1587 Sneakers continues in extensive use and advertising of its brand, has earned national acknowledgement. And we talked about the Globe and Teen Vogue. Obviously, many millions or more when plaintiff was prominently featured on Shark Tank. I was going to say, man, where's the Shark Tank thing? As a result of plaintiff's longstanding use, its national sales presence in this substantial media exposure, consumers throughout the country have come to identify the numeral 1587 as originating from a single distinctive source of the goods, which is the plaintiff. So what did Travis and Patrick Mahomes do? On or about September of last year, they launched a restaurant and clothing apparel line under the brand's 1587 Prime. Defendant accused March to create confusion with consumers, given their verbatim incorporation of the adoption 1587 trademark, which I would probably would agree with that. And this is, like I said, this is my issue with it. I think if Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes weren't selling clothing, I think they would be okay. But the fact that they are selling clothing in addition to having a restaurant called 1587 Prime is where the problem lies. So since launching, Patrick and Travis Kelce have offered their in-person and online patrons various clothing items, all of which wholly adopt or incorporate the 1587 mark. So just because you got Prime, like I said, Sam and those guys, they have a trademark on the number 1587. So that's going to give you, hey, just because you're adding Prime to it, that's not more likely than not, that's not going to carry the day to get you out of that infringement realm. 1587, and you just adding a word to it, and it's when you have these second words or these words that's after that main word, which is in this case main number 1587 is going to be considered the dominant mark. So anything afterwards, in this case Prime, is, because when you're looking at the mark, you're reading from left to right. So you're seeing 1587 first. So that's what the USPTO is going to consider as being a dominant mark. So anything that comes after is like, okay, that's not the dominant mark. And therefore, just because you're adding words to an already trademarked term, in this case 1587, that's not going to save you at the end of the day. So overall infringement, in addition to the defendant's causing apparel offerings, overall upon reviewing of the tasting menu, they got an agent inspire and influence dishes. Like I said, I'm not as concerned with the dishes or the restaurant, but those clothing, that's a big issue. So taken as a whole, Travis and Patrick might mirror and invade the same thematic commercial space that plaintiff has and is occupying without regard. On information to believe, defendants design and marketed the accused marks, aggressively marketed the accused marks that plainly incorporate 1587 Sneakers trademarks. Have Patrick and Travis done some simple due diligence prior to their launch, they would have ran into 1587 Sneakers. Travis and Kelce extensive marketing of the infringement accused marks has resulted in significant media coverage, Moreover, Travis and Patrick Mahomes' defendants' activities regarding the accused marks and in general have resulted in highly publicized litigation between the defendants and fellow shareholders, alleging embezzlement to pay for lavish homes, boats. This was crazy when I kind of was glancing this. So Travis and Patrick activities regarding the accused marks and in general have resulted in highly publicized litigation between Travis and Patrick and fellow shareholders, alleging embezzlement to pay for lavish homes, boats, and female X-rated actresses in a separate lawsuit filed by a former executive officer employee, now an effective whistleblower, alleging wrongful termination. So that's crazy because they're saying, hey, based on, it seems like Travis and Patrick is in some litigation with some shareholders on some embezzlement. So I'm not sure who's doing the embezzlement. Clearly, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are rich. So not saying that you can't be rich and still embezzle, but the likelihood that they're going to embezzle what you're going to make from a restaurant, which is going to be pennies compared to tens of 30, 40, $50 million NFL contracts, they have to be talking about an employee. That was a weird paragraph when I read that one. So such negatively publicity, but ultimately what 1587 Sneakers, the plaintiff, is saying, hey, that negative publicity, with it being the same name, is going to affect our business. That's what they're trying to say. So a diligent search of the public internet would have revealed the existence of our 1587 Sneakers. Look, they essentially, we sent them a couple cease and desist letters. They blew it off. And without permission, authorization, or consent from the plaintiff, defendants have infringed plaintiff trademarks right by making, using, promoting, advertising, essentially the 1587 mark. That's pretty much it, man. You got the first cause of action, federal unfair competition, which is another interesting thing I will say about this one as we wrap it up is, like I said, I think they got their trademark allowed, but they did not submit the specimen to actually have it or register or issue as a trademark, which like I said, I understand why they got the trademark allowed, because they filed for the trademark for the restaurant class, even though they were selling them clothing, and that was kind of wrapped them or got them involved with the whole 1587 Sneakers lawsuit, because you're selling clothing. Like I said, if Patrick and Travis Kelce didn't sell clothing, I think they would have been okay. But the fact that they are selling clothing kind of is an issue nonetheless. So, but again, they're not. So yeah, so that's pretty much it, man. Hopefully you guys understood that. Like I said, I thought this was an interesting one because it's somebody I previously interviewed who was on Shark Tank, and the fact that they're suing some NFL guys, some well-known guys, and you had this whole hotels, clothing, how that's not really similar classes, but the fact that when you start selling the apparel, which is again the ultimate takeaway for me with this one is, okay, even though I was just talking to somebody, we're about to file some trademarks on some books, and she was asking about clothing, and I'm like, man, we can file it for clothing, but it is another mark in clothing that's going to present some issues. But you need to be thinking about that. Again, you don't have to file in 10 different classes at the beginning, but say you are filing in this case hotels, and it's going to be clothing and things like that that's going to be selling, you probably need to make sure that this name is not going to be confusingly similar to somebody in the hotel space, but also in the clothing space, because that can kind of hit you up. And if Travis and Patrick Mahomes would have done that, then they would have kind of found out that, hey, we're going to get sued in this case. So, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, man. Like I said, this was a pre-recorded one given my activities today. Please hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Hit that subscribe button to be a part of the IP community. And I'll be back live in the studio next week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. You guys take care.